They said that Sokomushimura was an abandoned village, but it looked like people would still live there. If it's true that the village fell into ruin around the Edo period, maybe there's still things that are still historical items remaining there. Even just seeing the village from a distance seemed to arouse the kind of excitement in Mari that I knew in the way that she held my hand. Oh, this is amazing. Even though storms blow through this area all the time, it's like they've never been touched, these buildings. I wonder if anyone's taking care of them. I guess that'd be the evil spirits of the village, Kobayashi-san said, teasingly. But Mari didn't seem to hear it. As if to discourage intruders from the outside, there was a stone wall that stood before us. At the entrance to the village, there was a small stone that had been put there, so that people couldn't just enter at will. I bet this is what the Kishizaru clan put here after the Meiji era, Kayama-san said. On the stone there was some lettering carved into it. I guess this is like the remains of a shimenawa, Mari said, pointing to the rope around the rock. So here, like Mari mentions a shimenawa, which is like a kind of a thick cord that is kind of like roped around like certain things, like rocks or trees or whatever, to kind of like cordon off things, I guess. Yeah, it's like kind of like to denote that like it's like a sacred space or something like that. There's quite a lot of these like kind of in shrines around Japan, that kind of thing. So there's one on this rock, but it's kind of like, you know, all decayed. This is Saya no Kami. Look, there's like a face, right? So Saya no Kami, this is like the name of a god, I guess. Looking carefully, at the top of the rock, there was eyes, two eyes, and a nose and a mouth that were protruding like a sculpture from the rock. Beneath it, in the torso that belonged to the face, there were sentences using kanji, katakana, carved into the rock. The beginning and the end, they're using really old lettering, so I can't really read it, but I think this is what it says in the middle. It says, "Here lies the entrance to Sokomushimura. It is the entrance to Tokoyo, the land of the dead. Do not enter." If you enter, you will die. Your skin will melt. Your flesh will rot. Your bones will break. All your innards will sag. I guess it's it. And then the bottom, I think it says terrible, abhorrent things will appear. That's quite the warning. Kind of, yeah. This is kind of hard to understand, but I think what it's saying is like the one called Sukunabikona is already dead. I think that's what it says. Okay, and here again, this is all like this pretty old ways of saying things, but I think like it's saying like if this land is purified, then it will return to the hell it was before. Or, yeah, I don't know, something about like purifying the land, and I think living long as well. I don't know, it's a little bit beyond my understanding, I think. And then below that, there's two lines that say Namu Abidabuts, which is like the chant. That's like a Buddhist chant. It's very common. It does kind of sound Buddhist to a lot of these sentences though. Sukunabikona? What does that mean, I said? Sukunabikona? He helped with the creation of the land. He was a small god. He was hit by something, some kind of grain, and he flew to the land of the dead, Tokoyo. It said that he was the original ancestor for Isunboshi, the famous the legend of the small child. I think this is just kind of some kind of magical sentences to ward off intruders. But I think it's best that we don't enter from here. There was no helping it, so we went around to the stone wall and climbed over there. The moment I placed my foot down onto the ground inside the village, I felt something ensnaring me somehow. It shook my spine. It felt like a poison arrow that went straight to my heart. There was nothing below my feet. Although there was something that was truly unsettling about the surface of the ground here. I looked at Mari. She had a darkened expression on her face. I was sure that she felt the same. The air feels really heavy around here, Kobayashi-san said. He was right. Even though the sky was clear on other parts of the island, for some reason, just this village was cloudy. There was something dark and depressing about this humid air that was all around the village. It's just all in your mind. Let's go, shall we? Kayama-san said. It was his usual demeanor, but somewhere there was something dark about his tone of voice. It was as if he was slowing down the speed of it, even just a little. We saw some old huts that had been abandoned. There was some kind of foliage that were covering them. As we drew nearer to some of the huts, I felt a kind of pain deep inside my heart. It was then that I realized that it was from the spider web. There were dozens of spider webs enveloping the entire house. Kobayashi-san seemed like he found something, so he walked off into the bushes beyond the hut. Mari went straight for the hut that was right before her, and Kayama-san went over towards the swamp. So here we could choose who we follow. We can follow Mari, Kobayashi-san, or go to a different house by ourselves. Maybe we want to follow Mari, just kind of keep an eye on her, I think, maybe. Go with choice A here. I went to follow Mari. Wait, Mari, let me go with you, I said. And together we went to the first house we saw. With no effort, Mari pushed aside the spider webs that were spread across the doorway to the house. Do you intend to go inside? I asked Mari. There's no way we can just go back home. There's no way we can go back after having come this far, Mari said. Well, just let me go with you, okay? I said. As we entered inside, I smelled the strong smell of mold. Due to all the spider webs that were strung up across the window and the ceiling, it was very dark and grim inside. You could just see what was inside the room. There was gravel or sand spread across the floor of the house, and some kind of wooden furniture or some kind of farming materials that looked like they were rotten. It doesn't seem like there's anything strange here. Maybe we should just leave, Mari said. We went back outside and headed towards the bushes where Kobayashi-san was heading. Over there were about 10 blackish trees that were about 2 meters tall. The branches that had white petals on them were growing up towards the sky, but these branches that had this kind of yellowish fruit on the ends of them seemed to be hanging down towards the ground. There are a lot of things that kind of look like fruit hanging off these branches. They almost kind of look like small bananas. Something wrong, Uncle? Mari asked Kobayashi-san from behind. No, they just look like strange trees, you know? Now that he mentioned it, the branches did look kind of like a shiny black. They had kind of a shiny black sheen to them. Almost kind of like a beetle's back. Kayama-san joined us soon after. Ah, those trees. I've seen them before, back up on the mountain. They give off this weird smell, so I'm not a huge fan, he said. He picked one of the yellowish fruit off one of the branches. Kobayashi-san picked one of the yellowish fruit off one of the branches. wonder if you can eat this fruit, he said. Eat it? I don't know if that's a good idea, Kayama-san said. That strikes me as just the kind of thing a cook would say, though. You're always thinking about your ingredients, huh? Well, that's right. Yeah, I always think about what I could use in my food, you know? I really need something to kind of make the guest house famous with, you know? Some kind of, like, specialty. Kobayashi-san peeled the skin off the fruit. And inside, there was... The fruit inside was kind of a pinkish color. Seems like it's fine, Kobayashi-san said. But Kayama-san looked over and said, you know, it might be poisonous. I think you'd better take care. Oh. He stopped mid-sentence as Kobayashi-san put the fruit into his mouth. Well, there he goes. Someone needs to test whether there's poison or not, Kobayashi-san said. Oh, this is pretty good. It's kind of a little bit sweet. There's a little bit of acidity to it. But it tastes really fresh, you know? It kind of feels like a mixture between a banana and an apple. You know, if you put this into a dish, it could be really good, he said, and then swallowed. Come on, guys, how about you eat a bit as well? He, keeping a little bit for himself, he passed the fruit to us. I tried putting my finger inside of the yellowish skin of the fruit. It was all squishy inside. I peeled the skin off from the outside. It's got a nice look to it, Marty said. She was right. It had this nice pinkish color to it. And then we can choose to say, but I didn't really think it was a nice color. Or agree with Marty and say that it was pretty. I don't think this really matters what we choose. Sure, let's agree with Marty. I agree with Marty. It did kind of look pretty nice. Then another choice. We can say, I went to go and take a sniff of the smell. Or put our face closer to it to get a better look at it. I guess maybe let's have a closer look. I put my face closer to get a better look at the fruit. It kind of had a nice look to it as well. There was some kind of like sticky substance, kind of a half see-through sticky substance that enveloped the fruit inside, and that kind of stuck to my fingers and was dripping on the ground. There was a nice aroma wafting around. It smelt sort of harsh yet sweet, kind of like a perfume maybe from abroad. I almost felt like I was like an insect attracted to the fruit. I swallowed hard. We could choose here, but I must not eat it, or I can't help it. I must eat it. This is an awful lot like the song that we heard. So the song told us not to eat it, even if we can't help it. So yeah, something tells me that we shouldn't eat it. So maybe let's not eat it. But I mustn't eat it, I thought. It's somewhere inside me, somewhere my body was telling me, it was sending out a warning signal. Coming to my senses, I looked once more at the fruit. It was weirdly fresh looking. It was all shiny, soft, almost kind of like human flesh, living flesh. On the surface, I was kind of curious about this clear substance that was sticking to the surface as well. It was dripping on the ground, almost kind of like sweat. And the smell, it wasn't an overly pleasant smell when I thought about it. It was kind of almost like burnt coffee. No, there was something else that it reminded me of. Of course, that's it. It kind of reminded me of when, like, hair gets burnt. Hair or nails getting burnt. Burnt hair, burnt nails. That's kind of what it reminded me of. I started to feel like I really didn't want to eat it now. But looking over at Kobayashi-san, I saw him gleefully digging into the fruit. It didn't look like he was going to throw it away at all. Kayama-san had some as well. He kind of looked like he didn't really want to eat it. He took a bite of about a third of the fruit and then threw away the remains in a nearby bush. Yeah, no good for me, he said. It's kind of like a big ball of tuna fish. Really? I kind of think it's delicious, Kobayashi-san said. It kind of seemed like he was under some sort of trance. He had his eyes glued on us. Mari seemed convinced. She opened her mouth to take a bite. And it was the moment when she went to bite down on the pink flesh. I heard something. Maybe I was imagining it, but no, it was definitely something I heard. It was almost like the sound of laughter, like someone was laughing. And then I felt like there was some kind of like pinkish shadow, strange, almost hostile pinkish shadow that started to envelop Mari. I've got to stop it, I thought. Without hesitating even for an instant, I went and pushed Mari out of the way. "What are you doing?" she said. "I'm sorry, Hey, why don't we go and look at that house?" I grabbed Mari's hand and tried forcing her to walk away from the bushes. "You mustn't eat it, Mari. You mustn't eat that fruit." "Why not?" Mari said. It seemed like my uncle was into it. You know, as part of some of the fieldwork that you do for my anthropology studies, it's really kind of not that uncommon to eat stuff that you find on site. Why there's all these scholars that, while they research different cultures, I stopped Mari as she was speaking. You shouldn't eat it, I said. "Please, you need to listen to me." "Toru, since when did you get like this?" Mari said. "What do you mean?" "It's not just about the island. You're telling me not to go to the village? Not to eat this fruit? You know, you never used to be like that. You used to always be supportive of the things that I did. You never used to oppose me, or you always used to take care of me." The Toru that I'm seeing now, it seems like you're just trying to decide everything for me, everything that I want to do. Saying that I can't do this, that I can't do that. I hate that kind of you. It's because I'm worried about you, I thought. I tried putting that into words, but I wasn't able to. She was right. Coming from her position, it definitely seemed like I was trying to be a bit of a wet blanket. I'm sorry, I said. I don't mean to restrict you from doing what you want to do. It's just, I just can't let you eat that fruit, I said. All I could do was just keep saying the same thing, even if I didn't have any evidence or anything. I started to hate myself as well. I started to wonder if I was going to go on being hated by Mari. Toru, listen, Mari said. She took my hands in her hands. To be totally honest, I felt like I smelt fish or something. And I kind of felt a bit gross as well. Maybe I should be thanking you. I felt relief from the bottom of my heart. It was then that I noticed something in the corner of the dilapidated house. On the floor, at a diameter of about 2 meters, was kind of like a suitcase or a trunk made out of wood. What is this? I said. It looked like it had been eaten away by something. The lid and the entirety of the box was totally ruined. I wonder if something to put kind of like everyday items in. Some kind of like storage trunk or something. I guess it's a little bit big for that though. Maybe there's some kind of farm equipment inside or something, Marty said. She seemed kind of interested in it, and she drew closer to it. Some kind of black thing jumped out of the box and flew towards Marty. Was it some kind of monkey? Or a human? It had some kind of cloth attached to it, and it went to strangle Marty's neck. Toru, help me, she said. I lunged for its back and tried to tear it off Marty's body, but it wouldn't come off. It had an extraordinary power to it. Wow, okay. What do we do? A is, these are all kind of like dialogue options. We could say, I'm going to kill you. Or, this is just like, no, it's like, it's no good or something. C is like, I'm the one you want, to kind of like draw attention away from Marty. Jeez, yeah, I don't know. I guess we could try killing it. I'm thinking either A or C. Maybe let's try. No, yeah, no, but it looks like it's not gonna kind of give up on whatever it's doing. So maybe we'll have to attack it somehow. With A. I'll kill you, I said. I went for the lid of the trunk with both hands. I lifted it up and brought it down on the head of this monster with all my might. Ooh, splat. I had this strange feeling like I just pummeled a whole lot of vegetables. But it wasn't dead. Now that it was separated from Marty's body, it went straight for me. It leapt up onto my body and placed its hands on my neck. I screamed as I looked at its face. Oh my god. Is it a zombie? The living corpse shouted, screamed as it strangled. It went to strangle my neck harder. It put more power into strangling my neck. I tried as hard as I could to kick it off my body, but it seemed to not have any effect on it. I felt my consciousness slipping. It was no good. I was done for. And just then, there was a small sound, and I felt its grip on my neck weaken. Something had come down from above and landed on the zombie. I kicked off this living corpse and got up off the ground and headed towards where Mari was. Mari had fainted on the ground nearby. I picked her up. Around maybe like 10 different spots on her neck, there were pink marks. I heard the monster scream again, and I looked up. I felt like I was going to lose my mind. It was nothing like I'd ever seen before. There was a giant spider that was threatening the living corpse. It kept its body steady with its back legs and was thrusting its forward legs forward. The zombie took one of the spider's front legs and tore it apart. There was a sticky substance that dripped down from where the tear was. But that was all it could do to counterattack. The giant spider grabbed the zombie's head with 3 of its front legs and tore it apart. The small head of the zombie was hanging by a thread, a thin shred of skin. And the head itself, in its entirety, went upside down. This head that was now upside down started to slowly move around. Tokoyo no mushi, which means the insect from Tokoyo. And with its head on backwards, like so, it quickly turned to a different direction and ran out of the hut at a lightning speed. Hey, there was just this weird monster that ran out of here. What's going on? It was Kobayashi-san and Kayama-san who'd come running. As they saw what was going on, they were frozen still. It was only natural that they were surprised. There was a giant spider on the ground, writhing around. I looked at Mari, who was still unconscious in my arms. And Kobayashi-san had an angry look on his face. "You bastard," he said. And with the stick that he was holding, went to attack the spider. And just then, the giant spider leapt up into the space above. Kayama-san jumped forward to take on the spider. As he collided with the spider, they both fell down onto the ground. Kobayashi-san went to hit the spider with his pole, with his stick, and then went to stab it straight through its torso. The spider, with a stick piercing its torso straight through, tried to escape through the doorway. But Kayama-san leapt after it, and taking a survival knife that he was holding, went to cut its torso into pieces. It must have been female because a large amount of spider eggs, fluidy spider eggs, yellowish color, spilled out. Kobayashi-san took the stick out of its torso and, like a pike, went on stabbing all areas of the spider, letting out a shout as he was doing so. The spider seemed to resist for a while, but then gradually gave up. Its body started to freeze up, and then finally it started to quiver all up to the ends of its legs. From its abdomen, a large amount of white thread started to spill out, and then it quivered a little more before finally dying. Kayama-san and Kobayashi-san finally fell down to the ground in tiredness. I shook Mari as hard as I could, but she wouldn't wake up. Don't tell me she didn't make it. I tried checking Mari's pulse with my hand. I could feel her heartbeat. It was still beating strong. I was glad. Often you see on television and that kind of thing, people doing CPR at times like this, but I didn't know how. The only thing I could do was lightly slap her cheeks to wake her up. She opened her eyes. "Mari," I said, and I went to embrace her. And suddenly, Mari, a look of pure fear crept onto Mari's face, and she let out a scream. "Mari, it's me," I said. She eventually realized that it was me and stopped screaming. "What about that monster?" she said. "A giant spider appeared and chased it out of the room," I explained. Mari started crying. It was terrifying. "Mari, I knew this island was bad news. We really need to go," I said. "I guess you were right, Toru." Suddenly Kayama-san spoke up. "This island, it's just a giant spider web. Not to mention whatever that other monster was." Kobayashi-san crossed his arms. "You're talking about that monster we saw that ran out of here before, right? It looked like its head was only half on or something." I nodded. And then Kobayashi-san said something strange. "I kind of feel like I've seen that face somewhere." "You what?" he said. Yeah, it was that face. The face that I saw in the fountain at the mansion. It kind of looked like that. Yeah, it did. It looked just like that monster we just saw. Are you serious? I said. I couldn't think of anything else to say. Kayama-san left the hut first. He took a look around, but didn't see anything that looked like a spider or a zombie. All right, time to go. Let's get the hell out of this village, he said. I didn't need to be told twice. In a hurry, we made for the entrance to the village. As we were leaving the village, Mari took a glance over at the stone, the guarding god that we saw as we entered, and said, I guess we shouldn't have entered there. We finally made it back to the beach. All right, I guess I'm going to go back to the mansion. I'm worried now about the two guests that I left there. Kayama-san, you need to be careful. I get the feeling that stories about immortality and that kind of thing just lead you down the path of monsters. Why don't you go home with the rest of us? You got a point. I'll think about it, he said. It seemed like he was really shaken up by the experience. I do have to go back to the mansion, though, at least once, he said, and turned around, making back for the mansion. And just then, wah! We heard a shout. Thinking that maybe a monster had appeared again, my body readied itself. But that wasn't it. Kayama-san was clutching onto his stomach. He'd fallen to the ground, and he was rolling around. His face had turned purple, and there was sweat all over it. Oh, this is Kobayashi-san. Sorry, no, I thought it was Kayama-san. It's Kobayashi-san. Kobayashi-san was clutching his stomach, and he was rolling around on the ground. His face had turned purple, was covered in sweat. What happened, Kobayashi-san? I said. Uncle? Mari cried. No matter what I said, all Kobayashi-san did was roll around on the ground. He seemed to push us away when we tried to help him. Oh, it hurts, it hurts. Help me, please, he said. Where does it hurt? I asked. My stomach. It feels like my stomach's going to be ripped apart. Kayama-san pulled out a pill case from his pocket and pushed 2 pills into Kobayashi-san's mouth. Is that some kind of painkiller? I asked. It's to help with diarrhea. Well, it's better than nothing, right? He said. Perhaps the medicine worked, because Kobayashi-san's face seemed to return to normality. Can you stand? I asked. Yeah, I think so. I thought I was going to die, he said. I wonder why you suddenly felt so sick. Did you eat... Mari stopped herself, mid-sentence. I had the same thought. It was the fruit that Kobayashi-san had eaten only moments earlier. We eventually made the decision to go back to the mansion with Kayama-san. The beach wind was tough on us, and there was still something a little wrong with Kobayashi-san. I took him on my shoulders and carried him up the mountain. Kobayashi-san still had a pained look on his face and was sweating profusely. It seemed like the pain from before had ceased, but he wasn't back to 100% health. As we made our way down the mountain path, Kobayashi-san said, "I'm sorry, Toru." "It's okay, Toru's still young. He's strong, you know," Mari said. It seemed like she was trying to cheer everyone up. As I carried Kobayashi on my back, walking up that mountain path, I was suddenly reminded of something. Now that you mention it, there was the legend of the ubaste on this mountain, right? About throwing away old people up on the mountain. Now, just wait a minute. You're not thinking about throwing away Kobayashi-san, are you? Kayama-san said, laughing. This kind of tradition of the ubaste is in a lot of parts of Japan. They say they used to do it. They used to abandon people on mountains, older people that couldn't contribute to the village, that weren't able to work anymore. I wonder what happened to those old people that were left behind. Well, you know, if they're not that old, they'd be able to hunt things like boar, fish for food. And, you know, maybe they could eat things like nuts and fruits, grasses and that kind of thing. But I'm sure they eventually die of starvation and then become food for crows and wolves. The lake slowly came into view. I took a glance at Kayama-san. He had kind of a sick look on his face. His eyes seemed like they were looking around, searching for something. And he burped every once in a while, as if there was some kind of stomachache or something. Kayama-san, is there something wrong? Just as I went to ask Kayama-san, Kobayashi-san. So this just says me. Suddenly Kobayashi-san let out a huge cry from my back. His body turned itself backwards. His eyes rolled back in their sockets. And he started frothing at the mouth. Me. What's wrong, Uncle? What's going on? Mari said. He tried to yank Kobayashi-san off my back. And suddenly Kobayashi-san fell down onto the ground. The next moment, Kobayashi-san had suddenly sprung onto all fours, and he was running around like a dog. He suddenly jumped in the direction of the forest bushes. Leaving the path behind, he disappeared into the forest. It was faster than I'd ever thought imaginable. What the hell's going on? Kayama-san said, taken aback. It looked like he'd come to his senses, though. "We got to look for him," he said. The three of us split up and started looking throughout the forest for Kobayashi-san, but he was nowhere to be found. We slowly made our way through tall shrubs and bushes, pushing them apart one by one. There were spider webs in all directions, spreading out as far as I could see. They clung to our fingers. I started to wonder whether there was another giant spider nearby. I started to feel fear. But withstanding it, I proceeded forward. And just then, the grass before me started to make rustling sounds. I felt my heart beat faster. But what I saw coming through those bushes was just Marty's face. What are you trying to give me a heart attack? I said. Did you see Kobayashi-san? Marty asked. And I shook my head. I wonder where he's got to. And just then I heard a sound from behind me. We looked at each other. Well, it's got to be Kayama-san, right? Kayama-san. Kayama-san. Kayama-san, I guess. I went ahead and, trying not to make any sound, I gently drew apart the grass. And suddenly I froze. I stopped my scream in my throat. There were 4 black shadows in the clearing. They were crouched down. Amongst the 4 shadows, 3 of them were like the zombie that we saw at Sokomushimura. Everyone was chewing on the yellowish fruit that we'd seen at the village. And then one more figure in the group was Kobayashi-san. Just like the other monsters, Kobayashi-san was crouched down on the ground in the same way as the others, with the same expression, chewing on this fruit. It seemed like they didn't even care about peeling the skin off. They were eating it. They were eating the fruit with the skin on, shoving it into their mouths. They kind of seemed like hungry ghosts or something. Suddenly I heard Kayama-san shout from behind me, "Did you find him?" It was then that the monsters realized our presence. They threw away the fruit onto the ground, leapt up into the air, and ran off into the bushes. Kobayashi-san followed the other monsters. "Uncle!" Marty screamed. She covered her face with her hands and started crying. Kayama-san walked over to where the monsters had been eating the fruit and looked at all the leftover skins on the ground. "So that's why," he said. Then he turned on his heel and started back down the mountain. Comforting Mari, I started to follow after Kayama-san. As we walked down the mountain, Mari said in a quiet voice, "I guess my uncle is going to become one of them as well now." There was nothing I could say. Kayama-san had kept silent the whole time. I know it's because he ate that fruit from that tree. I knew it was fruit that you shouldn't eat. And suddenly I had an idea. The minomoshi, bagworms, I said. Huh? The bagworms from the song. That song that the captain taught us, remember? I started singing the tune softly. The minomushi, the bagworms, hanging down, look delicious. But you mustn't eat them. If you eat them, you will spend your life in hell. The minomushi, the bagworms that the song mentions, I'm sure that's what it means. Bagworms are like those insects that hang from branches, right? What he said. Yeah, I replied. Initially, they're like these worms that make a cocoon and then turn into a moth. But, I don't know, maybe it means a different kind of worm. I don't know what you're saying, Marty said. The fruit from that tree, it was kind of like hanging down, right? Maybe people from long ago, maybe they saw that fruit and thought it kind of looked like those worms. So you're saying that those lyrics are... I'm sure it's like a warning not to eat those fruit. The part where it says, if you eat them, you'll spend your life in hell. I'm sure it means that if you eat them, you'll become a monster. So that means my uncle, Marty started saying, and then cried. Maybe we can learn something if we look into the other parts of the song, I thought. When I told Marty, I was trying to comfort her, but she replied, yeah, I guess so. If I remember rightly, the second verse is... I got out my notebook. You can just stop that right there, Kaima-san suddenly said. From ahead of us. He didn't even turn around. But Kobayashi-san is... I started to say. I ate them too, Kaima-san said. And fell silent again. Of course. I'd totally forgotten. Kobayashi-san had told Kaima-san to eat some of the fruit as well. But he'd only eaten a little and then thrown it away. We continued walking down, walking over to the mansion, feeling as if a dark veil had fallen on us. For some reason, the walls outside the mansion looked kind of white in color. As we drew closer, we realized there were spiderwebs. Spiderwebs had covered the entirety of the break wall around the mansion. They covered the iron tower, almost sort of like tree branches. As we entered through the gate, we stood in the central garden. We imagined what it might have looked like inside as well. Spiderwebs everywhere. We crept our way through them, making for the entrance of the mansion. Kayama-san reached forward for the doorknob, and and grasped onto it. But the door wouldn't open. Perhaps it was locked? That's weird, Kayama-san said. He put all of his strength into trying to open the door. Marty and myself helped. And then suddenly, the door gradually started to open, making all these strange splatting sounds. Looking closer at the door, the space between the door and the wall had some kind of like white, sticky substance to it, some almost kind of like pate that was stuck, drawing threads between the door and the wall. These are spiderwebs too, Marty said. It seemed like the webs had been trying to keep the door closed. The inside of the mansion was just as we'd expected. Spiderwebs everywhere, from the ceiling down to the ground. We need to look for Mikimoto-san, Kayama-san said. I said, and Mari and Kobayashi-san nodded. There's no telling where a giant spider might be hiding out in. We should all stick together and look. I agreed with Kayama-san. Here we can choose. As the man, I felt I should stand as the leader of the group. Or B is, but I didn't want to lead the group. I thought Kayama-san should take the lead. I guess we can take the lead here. Why not? I thought I had better take the lead as the man. I'll take the lead, I said, standing in front of the other two, and started walking slowly down the corridor. Midori-san, I called out. Mikimoto-san. There was no reply, no matter how loud we called. Spreading aside the cobwebs, the spiderwebs that dropped down from the ceiling, we pressed forward, pushing aside the spiderwebs on the floor with our shoes and stepping on little spiders here and there. But for some reason it felt like the spiderwebs were just growing in number. It almost felt like the webs were winding their way around our fingers, around my finger, around my wrist, my arms. No matter how much I tried to spread them, tried to push them aside, they just got thicker. It was difficult to see ahead, almost as if the spiderwebs created a whitish curtain in front of us. Toru, your neck. Huh? I reached my hand up to my neck after hearing Mari and got a shock. Without even realizing it, there was a thick film of spiderwebs around my neck, kind of like I was wearing a scarf. I tried tearing it apart, but I couldn't. My feet, my legs, became enveloped in spiderwebs. Almost like I was wearing white boots. Even walking forward started to get more and more difficult as my feet had difficulty leaving the ground. I was able to move forward despite the heavy threads of spiderwebs, cutting them apart, pushing them aside. But little webs also found their way into my mouth and my eyes. And that made it even more difficult. Eventually, I couldn't even walk a step further. I realized we'd made a mistake trying to walk down the corridor without any kind of equipment to help us move forward. But there was no helping it now. I thought maybe we should turn back, just for a bit. However, I realized that there was no way we could go back the way we'd come. Turning around, all I could see was a white screen. I had no idea where Mari and Kaima-san had got to either. I tried shouting at a loud volume, but my mouth was full of this white thread. I couldn't get my voice out. My hands, my feet, my neck, my waist, none of them would move. And then I felt the thread around my neck get tighter. Breathing became more difficult. If this goes on, I'll get a hold of yourself. Suddenly, I heard Kaima-san's voice, and I was able to breathe again and see. Kaima-san had his survival knife in his hands. Oh, I was so worried, Mari said. Come on, we need to keep going, Kaima-san said. As we entered the cafeteria, Mari let out a scream. There was a giant spider web, about 3 meters in diameter, strung up in the corner of the room between the wall and the floor. And at its very center, there was something, almost like a human, being wound up round and round in thread. It was covered in thread. Its whole body was covered in thread. There was no telling who it was. And then a giant spider appeared. It seemed like it was even bigger than the giant spider we found in the hut at Sokomushimura. We need to help them, Kaima-san said. I don't know who it is, but if we leave them be, they're going to become food for the giant spider. But how do we... It's times like this we need to use our heads, Kaima-san said. Kaima-san stared at the spider for a short while, and then nodded, as if he'd decided on something. All right, we use this, he said. And then did something that almost seemed like he wasn't using his head. He ran towards the spider and body slammed it. It seemed like the spider didn't really expect Kaima-san to do something like that, and lost its balance a little bit. Now! We need to help this person out right now. Mari and I grabbed this human-shaped object that almost seemed like some kind of Egyptian mummy, and carried it out of the cafeteria. We heard Kaima-san shouting from inside the cafeteria. I glanced at Mari, as if to tell her to stay where she was, and then ran back into the cafeteria. Kaima-san, the giant spider had gained advantage over Kaima-san. He had already a thread spiderweb over his body, or about a third of his body. I'm coming to help you, I said. No, Kaima-san said. Just stay where you are. No, you need to run away. Quickly. There was no way I could just do that straight away. I needed to find a way to save Kaima-san, and quick. After I thought about what to do... Okay, well, 4 options. Okay. Option A is... I reached for some of the silverware on the table. Or I reached for a chair that looked heavy. Or I went for the spider's legs. Or I decided to do as Kaima-san said and run away. We could just leave Kaima-san here, but I don't know. Tableware maybe? Or chair? I guess chair. Chair would probably make the most damage, I guess. Let's try the chair. I decided to reach for the chair. Oh, maybe it's stuck to the ground there. I had to lift the chair up and hit the spider with it. But the chair wouldn't move. Paired with its initial heaviness, it was stuck to the ground, covered in spider webs. I gave up on the chair and looked for something else on the table. On top of the table there were forks and knives laid out. I grabbed one of them and tried stabbing the spider in its forehead. A greenish fluid flew from its wound. The giant spider suddenly leapt off Kaima-san and ran from the room, leaving fluids on the ground. And then I remembered, Mari was just down in the corridor. I ran out of the cafeteria as fast as I could. Mari was standing as still as she could, like a mannequin. She seemed overcome with fear. There was the greenish fluid in splotches all down the corridor, leading further down. I knew that it was probably the giant spider's blood or something. Now that it was wounded, we might be able to kill it once and for all. Choice A here, we can say like, all right, I'll leave the rest up to you, to Mari. Oh wait, no, other way around. Mari said, Mari says, go and take care of it, and we chase after the spider. Or we can check that Mari's okay before. Yeah, maybe check on Mari, I guess. That would be the gentlemanly thing to do, probably. I made sure to check on Mari before. I called out to her. Mari, are you okay? Mari. The spider came out. It was so big and scary, she said, terrified. Where did it go, the spider? Kaima-san said, appearing from the cafeteria. He'd nearly been made into a spiderweb, but seemed like he was uninjured. Ah, of course! Suddenly Mari leapt down and drew closer to the bundle of spiderweb that we carried from the cafeteria. She started peeling apart the spiderwebs with her bare hands, and said, crying quick, we've got to hurry. They'll die otherwise. Leave it to me, Kayama-san said, and used his survival knife to cut through the thread. Around 10 minutes later, finally, we saw the face of the person inside. It was Mikimoto-san. His skin had turned blue and was all dried. It was no mistake that he died. But just to be on the safe side, I checked for a pulse. I tore apart the thread around his chest. I checked for his pulse, but there was nothing. I shook my head, and Mari covered her face in her hands. He was a good man, Kayama-san said, letting out a sigh. I started to feel a deep hatred of spiders. I vowed to get revenge. I wonder what happened to Midori-san and Kiyo-san, Mari said, suddenly remembering. Of course, I remembered that Midori-san and Kiyo-san had also remained behind in the mansion. We've got to look for them, Kayama-san said. We've got to check every nook and cranny. And just then, Mikimoto-san moved. He's alive, Kayama-san said. But there was no way. There was no pulse. Mikimoto-san had been wrapped up in thread that had covered his entire body, filled his mouth and his nose. There was no way he hadn't suffocated, being left all those long hours in this cocoon. And yet, the top of Mikimoto-san's torso was convulsing, moving, as if we'd actually saved him. I went to protect Mari and looked carefully at this convulsing corpse of Mikimoto-san. And then, all of a sudden, I heard Mari scream. There were spiders. An infinite amount of spiders, baby spiders, started to spill forth from Mikimoto-san. The baby spiders crawled onto the floor around our feet. I tried as hard as I could to stamp them, to stomp on them, but they just kept spilling out of Mikimoto-san's body. Thousands upon thousands of these little spiders started to spill out from his eyes, his nose, his ears, and his mouth. We gotta run, Kayama-san said. We gotta run, I said. And Kayama-san nodded. Yeah, we gotta get the hell out of here. We made it to the first floor lobby. And then I said, A is, we need to look for Kiyo-san. B is, I wonder where Midori-san is. And C is maybe Mikimoto-san had something in his baggage that we could use. Okay. So we got a giant spider on the loose. Baby spiders. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's safe to kind of go and look for the other two, but I don't know. Anything could happen here. Maybe we could look in Mikimoto-san's baggage? Like that. Maybe there's something we can use in Mikimoto-san's baggage. Yeah, of course. I'm sure he had some kind of weapon or something we could use. Alright, let's go check it out, Kayama-san said. The second floor was worse than the first. There were silvery cobwebs wrapped around everything. There wasn't any way to walk. If you weren't careful, you'd be wrapped in spiderweb without a way to move forward. We've got to be careful. If there's this many spiderwebs all around the place, there's got to be a giant spider that's responsible for it all. There was no way spiderwebs of this volume could be made by just a single spider, a normal spider. Maybe on the second floor there was another giant spider that was the same size as the one in the cafeteria. Or maybe there were more. Maybe there were several. We slowly made our way across the floor, heading for Mikimoto-san's room. We made it to his front door. It was shut, but it could also mean that there was a spider inside. I opened the door carefully. There were spiderwebs covering all the furniture inside as well. I suddenly remembered Mikimoto-san lying on the first floor and felt a pain in my chest. Marty still had tears in her eyes. Okay, now we can't waste time thinking about Mikimoto-san. We need to search this room. Kayama-san said. Ah, here we go, Kayama-san said as he found Mikimoto-san's luggage. He cut apart the cobwebs with his knife and took the bag out. We looked inside, but there was nothing we could use. I thought maybe we could have stunned the spider with like a camera flash or something, Kayama-san said. Alright, maybe we should check some of the other rooms, I said. Marty said. And then suddenly Kayama-san looked up as if he'd remembered something. Ah, that's it, the storage. I'm sure there'll be something there for us to use. Well, let's check it out, I said. And we left Mikimoto-san's room. Halfway down the corridor, we passed by my room. The door was half open, and spiderwebs were covering the entranceway. We can take a look inside, or not. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to keep going, I guess. There was no reason to look inside, I thought. We continued forward. We made it all the way to the storage room. It was covered in spiderwebs as well. And there was some kind of strange squelching sound coming from within. I opened the door. At the end of the room, Midori-san was strung up by a giant spiderweb. Midori-san! Midori-san, I called. But there was no response. I hoped that she wasn't already dead. But her shoulders were drooping. Her shoulders were moving up and down. She was alive. I was glad just for a second before I saw a black shadow moving across the ground. But it wasn't just one, it was 2, 3, all up 7 shadows. 7 of these giant spiders were moving across the ground. This is no good. With this many, there's no way we could kill all of them. We need to evacuate, Kayama-san said. But if we leave Midori-san alone, she's going to wind up just like Miyamoto-san. They're going to lay eggs in her. It'll be too late, I said. But at the same time, I also thought that maybe they'd already laid eggs in her. I chased the thought from my head. What do you suggest we do? There's no way we could cut through all of them with just this one knife, Kayama-san said. And then suddenly, from behind the door, a figure appeared. It was Kiyo-san. She held in her hands two burning sticks, 2 thick burning sticks of wood. Kiyo-san handed one of them, both of them, to Kayama-san. Handed one of them. As soon as the spiders had taken notice of Kiyo-san, they started to move. 2 of them in the front leapt for Kiyo-san. We waved the burning sticks of wood around, trying to chase off the spiders. It seemed like they didn't like the fire and moved back every time it swung in front of them. Now, get Midori-san, Kayama-san said. And as I swung the burning wood in front of me, I took Midori-san out of the spider web. I held her on my shoulders and ran for the entrance. I could hear the spiders chasing us from behind. Kayama-san stood in front of them, waving his burning wood. "Yeah, how do you like that?" he was saying. I used to be a badminton back in high school. Yeah, we used to win all the time. It seemed as if the spiders were overwhelmed by Kayama-san, and they weren't rushing forward. And suddenly one of the spiders leapt for the fire. Kayama-san saw it happen and thrust down the burning wood onto its head. We smelt the aroma of burning flesh. A third of its black head melted into kind of a fluid state. Supporting both Mari and Midori-san with my shoulders, we carefully made our way down the stairs. As I looked back at Kayama-san, he was still flinging his torch in the direction of the spiders. "Kayama-san, quickly!" I said. "All right, I'm on my way," he said, and flew down the stairs, only to fall onto the landing. And just above him, all the spiders started to move slowly towards him. It was no good. I left Midori-san in the care of Mari and went to go help Kayama-san. "Don't, you need to run away," Kayama-san said. But there was no way I could leave him alone. choice A here, we could thrust our torch in the direction of the spiders above Kayama-san. That seems like the best option. Or we could throw the torch to Kayama-san. Or just leave him to die. A or B, I think, is a good option here. Probably use our torch, I guess, seeing as he's maybe immobile. I waved my torch around in front of the spiders above Kayama-san. The spider that had been burnt by the torch earlier instantly retreated, but the others kept pushing forward. I helped Kayama-san up and then hit the spider at the very front with my torch. Its head burst into flames where my torch had hit it. Before our eyes, the giant spider was engulfed in flames and fell down the stairs. "Now," I said, and urged Kayama-san forward towards the direction of Mari and Kyo-san, who were beckoning him towards the entrance. We saw white smoke spilling from the second floor windows. "The mansion's going to burn down," Kayama-san was saying. And just then the white smoke turned to black with tinges of red to it. And before we knew it, the two windows that faced each other were billowing black smoke at a rapid rate. Smoke started to spill out of the entrance where we'd escaped from as well. "I guess we can say goodbye to the spiders," Mari said. And I nodded. But just then, engulfed in smoke, we saw one of the giant spiders run out of the doorway, and then another, and another. There were more than 10 of them, a whole bunch. They were running from the flames. I had no idea where they were hiding. "They're alive," Kayama-san said, angered. "We gotta run." But the spider's pace was faster than ours. We tried escaping, but soon our path was blocked off. It's no good," Mari let out a scream. And then suddenly, the spider's movements started to get a little bit more chaotic. It was one of those strange monkey-like monsters that started attacking the spiders. The zombies. They grabbed onto the spiders with their long arms, tearing their body parts apart and bashing their heads with stones. I had no idea where they had appeared from, but then I looked around at the fountain in the middle of the garden and saw them crawling out of the water. It seemed like the fountain was connected to somewhere. Maybe the lake at the center of the mountain? Kobayashi-san had said earlier that he'd seen a face in the fountain. Maybe he'd seen one of these zombies as they moved down the connecting passage. The monsters let out unearthly screams as they attacked the spiders. And the spiders counterattacked back. There were about 7 of these living corpses, and more than 10 of these spiders. It looked as if the spiders had a clear win. The monsters seemed like they were heading towards defeat. The Skunabi Kona. There's not enough of them, and there's too many spiders. They're not going to be able to defend themselves. We're going to get caught up if we stay here. We need to leave. It was Kyo-san. Skunabi Kona? Are you talking about these zombies? Is that what they're called? Kyo-san nodded, and then led us towards the break wall. But Mari wouldn't move. She seemed too interested in these monsters battling it out with each other. Mari, what's wrong? I said. I get the feeling that my uncle's somewhere in this group. After a while, the living corpses started to escape into the fountain. I guess they realized that there was no hope for them. The spiders seemed hesitant about leaping into the water, so they stayed standing around the fountain in a large group. Now, we run now. Mari, I said. Grabbing Mari, I left the area. We made it up to the hill, and I laid Midori-san on the ground. Just then Kyo-san spoke up. There is a shrine called Amihari Shrine, just beyond the lake, closer to the coast. I know it. We paid a visit when we came. Kyo-san continued. There is a sword, a katana, in the main building of the shrine, she said. We saw that too, I responded. But there's no way we can just go and... Kyo-san kept speaking. The name of that sword is the Kumokirimaru, I guess. Kumokirimaru. It's a sword that was used by Raiko when he massacred all the giant spiders. Okay, so I don't know if much of this is real folklore, but like Kyo-san mentions that the sword, the katana enshrined in the shrine, is this kind of famous sword used by this warrior called Raiko, and it's called Kumokirimaru, I think is probably how you pronounce it. Kumokirimaru is like, it uses like 4 kanji. First kanji means spider, and the second 2 kanji uses the kanji for like cut, and also like the kanji for like circular or round or group or something. So maybe, yeah, like cutting a group of spiders kind of thing. And she mentions that like Raiko like used this sword to kind of kill giant spider spirits. She uses the word yokai to refer to the spiders, as if they're spirits, like not as in like not like real things. So maybe those spiders are yokai, not sure. Yeah, but I don't think that's a real story, real person. Although this Kumokirimaru, yeah, Kumokirimaru is a real thing, a real name of a sword, apparently, which is to do with, I think, the story, the tale of Genji. Apparently, there was this sword that a warrior used to kind of kill Tsuchigumo. So, like, yeah, potentially kill non-Yamato people, maybe. Also, maybe like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, in any case, that's kind of, you know, I guess it's a spider killing sword. The Kumokirimaru, of course, Mari said suddenly. So now maybe we'll get some history about the sword. It's written in the Tsurugi no Kan chapter of the Heike Monogatari. Mari seemed impassioned as she spoke. Heike Monogatari is a famous story. Yeah, a lot of it's probably legend, I think, but it kind of I don't know. It could be based on like historical fact about like the warring of two clans, the Heike and the Genji, I think it was. Very famous old Japanese story. And in it, there's a part about this person called Minamoto Raiko. But this name can also be pronounced, I think, Minamoto no Yorimitsu, I think. So Raiko is just like a different way of saying the name Yorimitsu, I think. He was like a famous warrior. So when Genji Raiko, samurai called Genji Raiko, was suffering with a high fever, a priest appeared at his bedside. Wow, this is tricky. Okay. I think this is what's going on. So, I guess that picture in the shrine was a picture of Raiko, right? Yeah, which means Minamoto Raiko, Minamoto no Yorimitsu. So it could be that sword actually was used to kill spiders. But I turned around to face Kyo-san. Why would you know this, Kyo-san? I asked. And if that truly is the case, then why haven't you gone to take that sword after all this time? We cannot get close to that shrine, Kyo-san said. There's a border that we cannot cross. What? What do you mean we? And this borderline? Kyo-san, just what exactly are... Kyo-san cut me off and said, We really ought to do something about these spiders, more than just talk. And there's no way we can win against the spiders if we don't have Kumokirimaru. I looked over at Mari. I don't know. I guess if it's effective, then we should use it, but... You know, there's a lot of truth to these legends that are passed down through generations, Mari said. I think we should trust Kyo-san. I nodded. You must believe me, Kyo-san said. We need to move as quickly as possible, or we'll be too late, she said. I'm going too, Kayama-san said. I guess I'm with you guys till death. But what about Midori-san? Mari said, looking over at the body on the ground. Suddenly there was a scream as Midori-san opened her eyes. Midori-san, I said. Ah, she's awake. That's a relief, Kayama-san said. Midori-san had the look of fear in her eyes. I was sitting with Mikimoto-san in the cafeteria and suddenly a spider... Midori-san's body shook as she went over her memories. Mikimoto-san, what happened to him? She asked. Kayama-san shook his head slowly. And Midori-san began to sob. There's still danger, Kyo-san said. We need to go to the shrine, now. Can you stand? I asked. Midori-san slowly stood up, a little unbalanced, kind of like a baby calf. All right, let's get going, Kayama-san said, walking off ahead.